When you think of the Sahara, what comes to mind? Probably an endless ocean of sand and a scorching hot sun, right? But what if I told you that beneath that surface lies a history so dramatic it could change how we see our planet and maybe even ourselves? So let's go on a journey to uncover some of those secrets hidden under the sand. Our story starts with a real puzzle, one that came from outer space. Picture this, it's 1965. A Gemini spacecraft is orbiting high above North Africa. The two astronauts on board look down and they see something that just shouldn't be there. You heard that right. Staring back up at them from the middle of this vast, empty desert was a colossal, almost perfectly formed eye. The astronauts James McDivitt and Edward White were the very first people to see it. It was a structure so massive and so bizarre that it defied any easy explanation. Now, this geological marvel has an official name, the Richat structure, but honestly, it's way more famous by its nickname, the Eye of the Sahara. And its scale is just, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around from the ground. The size of this thing is just mind-boggling. Let's try to put it in perspective. The central pupil of the eye, that alone is 40 kilometers wide. The entire structure is so vast, you could fit 30 cities the size of Mumbai inside of it. And that is exactly why it was hidden for so long. The rings are so enormous that you can't even tell what you're looking at from the ground. You literally have to be in space to see the eye shape. So what's the first thing you think of? A giant asteroid impact, right? That was everyone's first guess. But when scientists actually studied the site, they found none of the telltale signs. No shattered rock, no melted material from the crazy heat of an impact. So if it wasn't a meteor, what was it? This is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. Okay, so with the most obvious scientific theory off the table, some people started looking at a much older, more legendary possibility. Could this bizarre structure actually be the site of a famous lost city? Okay, so here's the heart of the theory. The Greek philosopher Plato described the lost city of Atlantis as being built in concentric rings of land and water. Now take a look at the satellite image of the Richat structure. The resemblance is, well, it's pretty uncanny, you have to admit. And it gets even stranger. There's an ancient map, made about 2,500 years ago by the Greek historian Herodotus, that shows a city called Atlantis in West Africa. A later Roman map does the exact same thing. And when you overlay those ancient maps with a modern one, the location they point to matches the Richat structure almost perfectly. But, and this is a huge but, there's a critical scientific catch. Despite how cool the theory is, archaeologists have scoured the area and have found zero evidence of any advanced civilization ever living there. No ruins, no artifacts, not a single thing. So the Atlantis theory remains a really compelling but completely unproven legend. The Eye of the Sahara is an absolutely incredible mystery. But what if it's just a distraction from a much bigger, more profound secret that's hidden beneath the sand? A secret about the entire desert itself. Now, this is a scientifically proven fact that is somehow even more shocking than a mythical lost city. For thousands of years, the Sahara Desert wasn't a desert at all. It was a vibrant green paradise. The contrast is just staggering. I mean, today we see 9 million square kilometers of hyper-dry sand and rock. But if we could wind the clock back 11,000 years, you'd find a landscape filled with enormous lakes, flowing rivers, and sprawling green meadows just teeming with life. Scientists actually have a name for this era, the African Humid Period. And here's the paradox. It happened because the rest of the world was freezing. During the last ice age, as huge glaciers covered much of the globe, shifts in global climate patterns basically turned North Africa into a temperate, life-giving sanctuary. The scale of this whole transformation is just epic. The world plunges into an ice age and the Sahara blooms. It stayed a lush paradise for thousands and thousands of years, even after the ice started to retreat. But then, around 6,000 years ago, the climate shifted again, and that green paradise began its slow, relentless retreat, giving way to the sand. So that brings up a pretty big question. If this land was once green, where did all this sand, enough to cover almost the entire United States, actually come from? Well, the answer is a three-step geological saga. It all started about 250 million years ago when a huge ocean called the Tethys covered this whole area, depositing layers and layers of sediment.
Over eons, all that sediment got compressed into massive layers of sandstone and limestone. And then, finally, the ocean receded, the land was exposed, and for millions of years, the wind just went to work, grinding that rock down, particle by particle, creating the desert we see today.
So the Grain Sahara is gone, but it wasn't totally erased. If you know where to look, you can still find these incredible echoes of that lost world, hidden in plain sight.
The clues really are everywhere. In caves, you find ancient rock art of cattle grazing in places where only sand exists now. In these tiny, isolated oases, small populations of crocodiles still survive. They're basically stranded descendants from when rivers connected the whole region. Even the mysterious yellow gem in King Tut's necklace was formed by an asteroid striking the wet, sandy ground of the Green Sahara. But most importantly, it was this green, hospitable continent that was the cradle of humanity, a sanctuary for our earliest ancestors while much of the world was frozen solid.
So we've uncovered this lost world under the sand. But the Sahara of today is still full of surprises that completely shatter our common image of some monotonous, lifeless wasteland. Okay, first, let's bust a common myth. The Sahara is not the world's largest desert. That title actually belongs to the cold polar deserts of Antarctica and the Arctic. The Sahara is, however, the world's largest hot desert, and it's not even close. And the surprises just keep coming. Only about a quarter of the Sahara is actually covered in those iconic sand dunes. Most of it is rocky plateaus and huge mountains. Its highest peak is over 3,400 meters tall. And get this, it actually snows in the Sahara. Temperatures can sometimes drop to -6 degrees Celsius. But maybe the Sahara's most astonishing secret is the vital role it plays in the world today. Every year, millions of tons of dust are lifted from the desert floor and carried 4,000 kilometers across the Atlantic Ocean. This dust, rich in phosphorus, falls on the Amazon rainforest, acting as a crucial fertilizer for one of the most important ecosystems on Earth, a desert giving life to a rainforest. So the Sahara is not an empty wasteland. It's a place of deep history, a cradle that helped birth our species, and a dynamic force that sustains life an entire ocean away. Which, of course, leaves one final question. What other secrets are still buried out there, just waiting to be discovered, under all that sand?